So I like to call these episodes Lucas Asserts His Dominance, because on today's episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast, we are going through a fantasy football mock draft, our very first redraft mock draft of the season. Welcome in Lucas Wenzel, Tyler Plath, and Cameron Lawrence is on today's show. Wow.
We made it.
He made it. He moved from Florida to Minnesota seamlessly. He would advise every single person in the world to do it. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I mean, maybe if you're going to do it, don't buy a house you got to completely tear down and then rebuild. I wouldn't do both at the same time. But I mean, sometimes you just don't have a choice, I guess.
You could totally hear it right now where Cameron's like, after this, I got to go work on my house.
Yep. I'll be there for the next 6 hours after this. Do my 8 so I can do my 6 later.
This is his moment of escape to do a fantasy football mock draft with Ty and I. Ty, I will say, the people did side with me in our Dynasty startup mock draft that I absolutely spoke to you. So that's the only reason why I started the episode out with, I assert my dominance in these episodes.
How badly did you beat me in that draft? Because
Probably
if you don't have evidence, I think you just oh really
51% to 49%.
Wow, I was gonna say, because if you don't have any evidence, I think you're just talking a load of crap. So I can't take anything from that. But when it's that much of a landslide, I get it.
By the end of the episode, I will pull up proof of the votes and how I dominated you in our startup mock draft. Look, we are going through a 12-team PPR redraft mock draft. We will be doing, count them, 7 of these throughout the offseason. We will be doing them every other week as a podcast episode. And look, you're here to see how these mock drafts unfold, to get all of our opinions. And now that our Fantasy Football Fellas draft guide is out for 2024, which you can buy down in the description of the video or podcast you are listening to. Projections on over 250 players you probably didn't even want to know their stat lines for this year. We statted them out for you. Got a lot more coming with that. Risk upside meters. We're going to have sleeper, breakout, and bust lists as well. We got a lot coming. Video archive as well. We're going to be doing this mock draft based off of our draft guide, just as we will every other mock draft this offseason. So you're here to obviously see how we would draft this year. So without further ado, let's dive on into the mock draft. As I said, 12-team full PPR mock draft. I am at the 102. Tyler's at the 104. And Cameron on the turn, the 112. So, once we get around the bend, he might, go ahead and scrape some popcorn ceiling in between his picks and then come back and make his pick in the next round. You never know.
We got that all done. We're way past that.
Oh, that's right, because I helped with that. You're right. Yeah, I hope you're way past
that. Was done before I got there.
You're welcome. No, we will be going through this draft here. 12-team, 12-round. We'll get a little bit longer mock drafts in future episodes, but without further ado, let's fire this draft up. At the 101 goes. Cameron's got to get on the ball here. See him scroll over and hit start draft.
My bad. Low tech production.
Christian McCaffrey goes at the 101 to team 1. Now, the question is, which wide receiver do I take here? Oh my gosh, you said there was unlimited time, Cameron. There is 40 seconds on the clock. I better make my pick. Look, my highest ranked player after Christian McCaffrey is CeeDee Lamb this year in the Dallas Cowboys offense. So I am going to be taking him ahead of Tyreek Hill this year. I think we're going to see another 175 plus targets to CeeDee Lamb this year. They have no run offense. I think there's a really, really good chance he repeats his dominant season from last year. So I will be drafting CeeDee Lamb ahead of Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and who team 3 takes Justin Jefferson. Ty, you're on the clock here. I think you got a gift.
I did. I was fully prepared to go with Breece Hall just because I thought that the guy that I'm going to take was going to be off the board, but I'm going to take my wide receiver 1 this year. It's Tyreek Hill. That's as straightforward as it can get with the 104.
Breece Hall did go off the board next, which I agree. I think he is in contention for a top 4 pick this year after McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyreek Hill. Jamar Chase goes afterwards. Amon-Ra St. Brown then. AJ Brown, Bijan Robinson, Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs. Cameron, to you at the 112, back-to-back picks here. What is your strategy at this point? Because in past years, it's felt optimal to kind of split wide receiver running back, because by the time it comes back to you, all the elite running backs are gone. But I mean, you get the top 4 gone here this year, and it's kind of a crapshoot after that. I shouldn't say a crapshoot, but it clearly goes down a tier from these top 4. So what are you looking to do here at the turn?
Yeah, it's just tough. We felt it kind of in best ball drafts as well so far of you got a decent first, probably top, first round, and then round 2, 3, 4, 5 is kind of just I feel like they could go in any order between those, couple of rounds. Like you look at the wide receivers after the top 10 or so, it starts getting real murky of, like you get those Texans wide receivers where we don't know where they're going to finish, guys like that it just becomes a little bit tougher. I personally think I still want to split here. I still want one running back, one wide receiver, because when we got the top 5, or top 4, I still see Jonathan Taylor in the top 5. Yep. I think he's probably like a half tier down, right? I think these guys just have enough receiving upside to be a little bit higher, but I got Jonathan Taylor right there. And then according to my rankings, I have Drake London higher than Garrett Wilson. I do, scoring point wise. However, it's super close. And however, I'm going to take Garrett Wilson just because we've seen the high volume production, right? Maybe not the fantasy production, but the high volume production, and he's got a lot less people to compete with in that offense. So I think Garrett Wilson's safer here, even though I do have Drake London statted a little bit higher. So I'm going to go Garrett Wilson with Jonathan Taylor.
We have yet to see Drake London surpass 125 targets in his NFL career. Mm-hmm. Garrett Wilson has topped 160 in his first 2 seasons. He has seen the most targets throughout the first 2 years of his NFL career than any other wide receiver in the history of the league. So I think there is some safety you do end up getting there with a Garrett Wilson. I do not fault you for that pick, and I think that's a fine start at the 1-2 turn. Marvin Harrison Jr., Saquon Barkley, Kyren Williams off the board next. Look, if Kyren Williams is still going 204 later this summer, I am honestly going to be very, very surprised. I would not be surprised if he is a slider in drafts. He already has been over on Underdog. Drake London, then Devontae Adams, Brandon Ayuk, and wow, Sam Laporta mid-second round. That seems very, very rich for Sam Laporta this year. I will not be drafting him there. And thankfully, you don't have to, Ty, because you are on the clock now. And who are you thinking?
I could just go all in on this Miami offense and go with Devon Achane here. And I don't mind it. But at the same time, I've got Achane in a tier with like 8 other running backs that are going to put up very similar production. So I don't really need to force the Achane pick here. And so I'm actually going to go with Chris Olave. And I know I recently said in a podcast that I've got a particular player that will not be named outscoring Chris Olave. And I went back and redid, and I severely misjudged how impactful of a player Chris Olave is in the Saints offense. And now with Clint Kubiak coming over, I don't think it's necessarily that like Clint Kubiak is going to take this offense into another stratosphere and that Chris Olave is going to be one of these like top 6 guys that we talk about next year. But he's very similar to Garrett Wilson in the sense that he's just like a pure volume play because there is no one else in this offense. So getting 2 stud wide receivers right off the top with Tyreek and Olave, I'm very, very happy.
Yeah, I really do like that start. If you can get Tyreek Olave with your first 2 picks, I think you're in a very, very good spot, especially with some of the running backs coming up as well, and guys who are a little bit down the ADP board even, that I know we all have ranked higher than consensus currently. Because this is the first mock draft of the season, because it is June 3rd, 3:10 p.m., you all won't be getting this till June 4th. I'm going to go ahead and experiment a little bit. I am going to take, with my first pick, after Devon Achane went next, I'm going to take Travis Kelce here. I'm going to take my elite tight end. I still have him ranked, statted out to be the number 1 tight end this year in fantasy football, ahead of Sam Laporta. I'm just double checking how many more points I have him. I mean, I have Travis Kelce scoring 15 more fantasy points than Sam Laporta this year.
Ooh.
I just don't. I don't think Sam Laporta is worth that mid-second round pick. I would rather just take Travis Kelce. And I'm mostly doing that so I don't have to think about tight end later. And the only guy I would be thinking about later is a Jake Ferguson. And I don't think I want to have to do that. So with my next pick, then I'm looking at the board, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, all here. And if I remember correctly, I believe my next highest ranked player is actually going to be this is so tough because Mike Evans is my next highest ranked player. And I think I am actually going to end up taking Mike Evans here as my wide receiver too. I would rather go heavy on pass catchers right away. I think there's enough running backs that I can wait on in a bit before the wide receiver position starts to fall off. So I'm experimenting a little bit here. I haven't done many sleeper PPR mock drafts yet as we get further into the offseason. Obviously, we'll be doing those more and more and more. We'll be doing those over on our chalkboard as well. So if you want to get in on daily fantasy football mock drafts, that is on the description of the video or audio podcast you are listening to. But Josh Allen goes off the board next. Ty, back to you. Another wide receiver, load up right away. Are you looking at a running back at all? Give me your thought process.
So the wide receiver that I was kind of hoping for was Mike Evans, who I also have as a top 10 wide receiver this year. So if he was available, I would have gone Mike Evans, and then I've got 3 stud wide receivers right off the top. But I'm going to go down the board. No, you know what? I'll try to play it a little bit. I am going to go with another pass catcher and just try to go bully wide receivers right off the top. I'm going to go DJ Moore. I'm higher on DJ Moore than you two are. I've got him as my wide receiver 13 on the year.
Let's go.
You're getting Caleb Williams as his quarterback, and he just finished top 10 with Justin Fields. Now, granted, yes, like Keenan Allen is still there and stuff, but like this offense is going to be very, very good, and it's going to go through Caleb Williams. I mean, it's not like they have like a Saquon Barkley in the backfield or anything like that. So I think DJ Moore is going to be the wide receiver one from a production standpoint. So I'm really set on wide receiver here moving forward.
Lucas, we lost you.
Yeah, we lost you.
Because I'm muted. That's why. I muted myself when I had to cough. Cameron, you're actually lower on DJ Moore than Tyler, despite what seemed to be the unanimous fellow who was insanely in on DJ Moore.
I mean, I'm still in on DJ Moore. I think Ty's just a little higher than I imagined. Wide receiver 17 is, I'll admit, lower than I thought he was going to be. But I still got to stat it out for a pretty decent season. I just think that Keenan Allen, I mean, I've loved Keenan Allen too. Like, I've not been shy about that. I still think he's phenomenal, and I really liked Rome coming in. So I just think he comes down a teeny bit. And obviously, I've got so many guys from wide receiver 10 to wide receiver 19. All those guys are within 15 points for me right now. So it's a very tight bunch right there. And so that, I give him another touchdown or something like that, and all of a sudden he's the wide receiver of 12.
So you fist pumped and said yes as the board fell to you, and I think I know who your next pick is going to be, and I would be thrilled if I were to draft this player here, assuming my hunch is correct.
I want to hear your hunch. I wonder who.
Jaylen Waddle would be a smash pick for me here. Smash pick.
So I have 2 wide receivers higher than Jaylen Waddle for sure here, and I think I'm going to go both of them. And so I do want to say this because I think at this point in the year, it is very okay to not listen to ADP. Like, obviously, you don't want to get trapped on ADP at any time, but especially right now, just because we're looking at our board. It has 2 of the next 3 picks is Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Not bad spots to pick, but I do think quarterbacks come back down a little bit, right? Because we have a lot of young quarterbacks coming up who have been playing really well. For me, I do have 2 wide receivers higher. The first one I think Lucas is really going to hate, and it's Cooper Kupp. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp there. Cooper Kupp is my wide receiver 14 right now.
Oh, my gosh.
I just want to remind you the last time this guy started the season healthy, he averaged 24 fantasy points per game. So, I mean, I understand it's a very different offense. I understand everything. But when he's healthy, he was still fantastic. And this one is tough. I have Devonta Smith higher than I have Jaylen Waddle. However, I do think the Jaylen Waddle upside is greater than Devonta Smith, just being in the offense that's going to throw more. I think I am going to go Jaylen Waddle here. But I think Devonta's, and that is mainly because he is my wide receiver 3. So I'd rather have the guy I see more perceived upside with than Devonta Smith, who I think is going to be very consistent, but as a wide receiver 3, I do want that upside.
Look, I think Jaylen Waddle has a big bounce back year this year. I think a lot of people are going to be upset with him for his seemingly disappointing season last year. If this offense is literally hyper funneled to him and Tyreek Hill in the passing game, Jaylen Waddle is bound to have a bounce back season. And if you're getting him in the early 4th round, to me, that is just such an insane value. And you can start with Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith, Jaylen Waddle, if you didn't take Cooper Kupp there. That to me is like a dream start this year. So I love that Jaylen Waddle pick. Trey McBride goes after Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco then. 3 quarterbacks in a row, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, Tank Dell to team 5, and Tyler to you here. 3 straight wide receivers. I imagine you are looking running back here.
Yeah, the running back I was kind of hoping would get back to me was Isaiah Pacheco. That was, I think, a bit of a stretch, but I maybe should have taken him instead of DJ Moore. But in the way that the board kind of fell, though, I'm actually very, very happy because James Cook is right there. And James Cook, he's my running back 10 this year. And Pacheco is only scoring 1.3 more points than James Cook. So I'm getting a running back that's going to give me very similar production that I got a full round later than I would have, if I did take Pacheco in the 3rd. So I think James Cook, he's one of my favorite players, and I like him more than I thought I did, because I think, like, just with how this offense is structured and stuff, there's top 8, top 7 upside for James Cook, because he is going to be so involved in this offense. So even though he doesn't give you like the elite, like, touchdown upside, because Josh Allen is going to take most of his touchdowns, James Cook is just going to be a volume play. And I'm expecting an uptick in receiving work just because there is no Stephon Diggs. There is no Gabe Davis. I'm very, very happy with James Cook in the 4th round this year.
Yeah, I love James Cook as a value here too. When Joe Brady took over, I mean, it was the James Cook show. And unless if you really think Ray Davis is going to steal goal line carries that were quite literally non-existent for James Cook last year, I think James Cook has top 10 written all over him again this year. So I really do like that pick. There's one player I do like better than James Cook here, though, and that is a player who we talked about on our last episode, Ty. Alvin Kamara. Look, he is unapologetically my running back 7. And he might fall back down. I'm probably going to need to adjust his yards per carry. As of right now, I have him pinned for just about 4 per carry. I might have to bring that down a little bit, but at worst in my rankings, if I bring him down and he loses 5 fantasy points, he's still my running back 11. So I am still getting in my mind, in my rankings, a running back 1 in the late 4th round. So I am going to take Alvin Kamara there. I was hoping DK Metcalf would come back on the turn to me because he's one where I do have him lower in my rankings, admittedly lower than I'd like, the wide receiver 27. And I'm going to make some tweaks to that in the coming weeks because I do think DK Metcalf has more upside. And frankly, I think my ranking is a little bit disrespectful to the upside that he actually possesses this year, especially for a guy who has been finishing top 20 each of the last 3 years. As for now, though, I will take my next highest ranked wide receiver. I'm going to triple check that it is Amari Cooper. It is indeed Amari Cooper, and I am going to take him here. With Deshaun Watson last year, look, we're extrapolating a small sample size, but Amari Cooper's on pace for 1,600 yards with Deshaun Watson last year. He's not going to hit 1,600 yards. That's not what I'm promising you. But to have CeeDee Lamb, Travis Kelce, Mike Evans, Alvin Kamara, Amari Cooper to start off my draft, that I'm very, very thrilled with that. Ken Walker goes off the board next. Tyler, to you, 3 wide receivers, James Cook. Can I predict that you're going to take Anthony Richardson?
Oh, wow. That was from the top rope.
Come on!
I was seriously considering it. You know, I'm looking at 2 wide receivers, Zay Flowers and T. Higgins, who I'm
you're a Zay
very
guy.
big fans of. But I don't necessarily need to take a 4th wide receiver when I've got really like 3 highly rated guys, in my opinion, on my team already. So I don't need to really like I don't need to go more in on a receiver. I don't mind Dalton Kincaid, leading receiver on this Buffalo team, but I can definitely wait on tight end because I think there are guys with upside later on.
One guy.
I like one guy in
One
particular.
guy. We all know. If you
Well, I
listen
guess-
to last week's episode, we all know who it is.
I guess he's got 2 guys though. He surprised us with another one, so we'll see if that
That's
guy
fair.
pops in here.
I like Joe Mixon too. He's my running back, I believe my running back 14, and getting 2 top 14 running backs in my rankings before really a dead zone. We might be in the dead zone right now. But because of that, I'm going Anthony Richardson for a guy that honestly, I mean, does he have overall quarterback 1 upside this year? I think he does.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a way for Anthony Richardson to finish among the elite quarterback producers, the Josh Allens and Jalen Hurtses of the world. Taking the shot on a guy like Richardson, giving myself rushing production as well, right? Because I could have gotten that with Joe Mixon. I'm getting that with Anthony Richardson. Big fan of Anthony Richardson in the 5th round this year as well.
Couldn't agree more. Smash pick for Anthony Richardson in the 5th round for me this year. I debated taking him ahead of Amari Cooper, but considering I took tight end early, I don't like to go tight end and quarterback early unless if I'm intentionally stacking it. But I absolutely love that Anthony Richardson pick. He is just such a smash pick for me in the 5th round this year when you get that kind of upside with Shane Steichen. Per Hayden Winks pulled a great stat, 3rd in plays per minute under Shane Steichen last year. Now imagine Anthony Richardson at the helm, running the football. It's a no-brainer there. George Pickens, Zay Flowers, Joe Mixon, Dalton Kincaid, Aaron Jones. Team 9 has yet to draft a wide receiver. Bijan, Kyron, Jalen Hurts, Pacheco, Aaron Jones. So good thing you loaded up on wide receivers already, Cameron, because James Conner and Joe Burrow went next. Which direction are you looking to take your team here? Because at this point, again, we're in this kind of dead zone of running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Your next best tight end is Kyle Pitts, who I think could have himself a nice little bounce back year. Quarterbacks at this point, you're reaching down the board a little bit. So what's your thought process here? In what direction are you going to take your team?
Well, my original thought process is I'm very disappointed that Joe Mixon and Aaron Jones did not make it to me. I was hoping for one of the 2. I got a couple running backs on my board later down who I'm actually higher on than ADP. So I'm actually thinking I'm going to wait on running back here. I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. I have Kyle Pitts as my tight end 6 right now, but I have him very close to that tier of the Dalton Kincaids, Trey McBrides, Sam Laportas. I have him only a couple spot points behind. I think there's going to be a lot of variability with Kyle Pitts this season. I think he could have a George Kittle-esque type of season almost, where you'll get like 140 yards and a touchdown here, and you're like, holy cow, 2 touchdowns, and he just won me my week, and then it's like 30 yards for 3 weeks in a row. So I could definitely see that, but I also don't hate that, that I could have a tight end who could go out and win me a week. Looking down the board, at the running backs, Monty, Swift, Ramondre, they're good, right? I think they're solid running backs. But like I said, I just have guys later. Wide receiver, I don't need. So I'm going to reach for a quarterback here. And let me see where do I have him?
No,
he's my quarterback 5 right
now.
No,
this wasn't supposed to happen. No,
it is Mr. Kyler Murray.
No,
this dude, his career floor for a season is the same as Patrick Mahomes at 18 points per game. Right, he's got the upside to get up to 24 points per game. I think he's probably somewhere in the closer to like that low 20 range, but I don't know. I think Kyler Murray is a guy that should be moving up draft boards pretty quickly with him being healthy and them adding Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ty's guy Zay Jones.
Not Ty's guy. No. Oh,
unnecessary.
He deserves it.
Unnecessary.
That was unnecessary stray. That's a separate group chat comment. As we were debating about Trey McBride in our group chat. Kyler Murray, do we all have him top 5 this year in our rankings? I think we all do.
He's my quarterback 4.
He is my
Wow.
quarterback 5. And
I
Cameron,
didn't realize you guys were that high.
Yeah,
on him.
that's why I
thought
was
I was
upset.
alone.
No,
Oh,
I am
that's awesome.
insanely in on Kyler Murray this year. When his floor is the quarterback 10 and you get him Marvin
Yep.
Harrison Jr., Trey McBride in an offense that under Kyler Murray last year, per Jeff Bell of Football Guys, ran 68 plays per game, which was on pace to be the second most in the league last year. You get him year 2 off of an AC. I mean, Kyler's a no-brainer in the 6th round. I'm taking him in the same range as I am Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer for me at that point. And Sleeper hasn't pushed down. I mean, Cameron, you probably reached almost a round and a
2
half,
full rounds, yeah.
right, to go get him. And I think that's the appropriate range to be taking Kyler Murray this year.
Mhm.
Jordan Addison, Christian Kirk, T. Higgins off the board, then followed by Ramondre Stevenson, Keenan Allen, Rashee Rice, and David Montgomery. Ty, my guess is that you're looking running back here after your wide receiver start. Am I correct in my thinking, or are you actually no? You're looking tight end here. Who am I kidding?
I'm a big fan of Evan Ingram more than Jake Ferguson, which might sound funny because I might be the biggest Jake Ferguson stan on this podcast, but I like Evan Ingram a little bit more. But that being said, I'm
going to take Evan Ingram.
You
just
are?
to piss you off.
Yeah, right. With Travis
Bully
Kelce.
tight end.
Calling your
bully
bluff.
tight end in redraft.
Ty's a running back guy at heart. He doesn't like leaving the top 6 rounds to 2 running backs. I know him. I know what he's thinking.
I'm going another pass catcher here, I think.
Really?
Wow.
I'm going Jaden Reed.
Fair play.
I think the intrigue for Jaden Reed, in my opinion, is just that he does have the opportunity to be the most productive wide receiver on this Green Bay Packer team. That being said, there's good value with Packer wide receivers later in the draft, but I think Reed himself is also good value just because he is the guy that really kind of showed out last year in this wide receiver room that he's going to be productive no matter what is going on around him. So maybe a little bit of a luxury pick. I just wasn't a big fan of really any of the running backs at this point. I'm looking at like DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard and Najee Harris, and I'm like, meh, not really. I would much prefer Jaden Reed over those guys.
Yeah, Jaden Reed falls about right into this range of most of my rankings, of my flex rankings at this point, of like a solid 6th round pick. I don't know how much upside he actually gives you, which is kind of my only gripe with him, but I would prefer him to Rashee Rice, to Keenan Allen. T. Higgins I have them back to back in my rankings, definitely ahead of Rome. So I don't mind Jaden Reed there, and especially for how your wide receivers are built, I think a little bit of consistency would be necessary there. I am in a predicament because I know who one of my picks is going to be, but I am torn between 2 players and how I may or may not be able to play this board. What I'm going to do is, for my first pick, I am going to take DeAndre Swift of the Chicago Bears because I do need another running back. Oh my gosh. You are absolutely kidding me. I was ready to send it to break. I was ready to come back and reveal who my next pick was going to be. But no, I can't even do that because Dak Prescott was going to be my pick. I was going to stack him up with CeeDee Lamb. Oh, it was going to be a beautiful thing. And of course, Team 1 has to go up and ruin that by taking Terry McLaurin and Dak Prescott on the turn. So you know what? While I go ahead and process my emotions and all my anger right now, let's go to break. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we're back. I'm tilted.
Yes, sir.
Still, we took it for you. It was a 30-second break. For me, 10 seconds. I am not happy because Dak Prescott went off the board, and I was going to stack him with CeeDee Lamb, and it was going to be a marvelous thing. Because I am terrified of the quarterbacks following this upper echelon this year, I am going to go ahead and snag Jordan Love at my quarterback position. I just don't think there's a chance. Yeah. Oh, get sniped, sucker.
That's awesome.
I bet you
That's
know
so
how it
awesome.
feels.
Back to back. I'm not telling you who I want.
Good. Keep it to yourself. Easier to get sniped.
I am. You're gonna take who I want. I guarantee it.
So Jordan Love won. I took Jordan Love, and Ty, who thought Evan Ingram was going to fall right into his lap, did not. Went with the next pick. So Ty, with what would have been Evan Ingram, I gotta imagine now you're gonna take your boy George Kittle here.
Heck no, dude. I'm so far out on George Kittle this year. It's not even funny.
The people probably couldn't sense that massive hint of sarcasm in my statement, but
I am in a pickle here. Because I don't really want to reach on anybody. Like, the running backs don't excite me. The tight ends don't excite me at this point. Like, there are players that I like, but just not with this 7th round pick. That being said, I think I'm ultimately going to go with Tony Pollard here.
I hope you get not Jake Ferguson.
I am not ready to get hurt again by Tony Pollard after last year. But here I am opening myself back up to the possibility that Tony Pollard could actually be a really, really efficient back in this Tennessee offense. It stinks with Tajay Spears in the backfield because they've already come out and said that it's a 1A, 1B situation. So it's not like this. It's not going to be the entire backfield to Tony Pollard. But at the same time, that was the thing with Tony Pollard in the past with Zeke, was that, like, you know, the backfield isn't entirely his, but he made the most of the opportunities that he had. So maybe that's a benefit to Tony Pollard this year. I don't really know, but I'm taking just a running back that I don't necessarily mind this late in drafts. And would we still say that round 7 is still the dead zone?
Yes, I will have 0% Tony Pollard this year,
and I think that's
a single share of Tony Pollard.
I think that's completely understandable. Some people are going to either be like, you're not going to be super excited about Tony Pollard, but I think there's going to be a lot more people that are going to be much more out on Tony Pollard.
I would much rather draft Najee Harris than I would Tony Pollard.
And that's saying something.
That is saying something. Caleb Williams, Calvin Ridley, Xavier Worthy off the board. Then Raheem Mostert, George Kittle, Chris Godwin, Zach Moss, who I sneaky like Zach Moss this year. I'm not going to lie. But Cameron, Zach Moss? Yeah, dog. He went.
Brother, I was eyeing him for the 8th round because that's what Sleeper was saying, that he was going to be there in the 8th round. What the heck is that?
Team 11, low-key sharp. Low-key sharp. Cameron, you're on the clock, though, after going Kyle Pitts, Kyler Murray. Only one running back still.
Yeah, I just got like a couple things here. First of all, why the heck is it Hollywood Brown on Sleeper? Like, when I'm trying to look up Marquise Brown, like everybody else goes by their name, and we just started like, he didn't change it or anything. It's not like Chosen Anderson, like, it's just ridiculous. Next, I got the opportunity here to take Jake Ferguson, and it could just make everything better if I did. I don't think I will because I want to win, and I think I'm gonna get.
I actually want to win my league. So.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna get knocked for this pick, but I'm just so ridiculously high on this guy that I can't pass him up. We'd call me a fraud, and so I gotta go Deontay Johnson here. It's not even.
You would be a fraud for not taking him this high. Right.
In my rankings, it is not close. I have him as a top 24 wide receiver. I got to take this next guy too, because I got him ridiculously high, and I don't even really like this guy, but I just think the opportunity is there with Sean Payton, so I'm going to take Javonte Williams next.
Jeez.
I don't have a choice based on like the way I look at it, you know, and I'm trying to be more objective this year, a little less subjective. Unfortunately, Jake Ferguson did not go in front of Ty. I was really hoping to see him in tears here, but I don't know. I like the way my team's rounded out after those 2 picks.
So we talked about this. I am the lowest on Javonte Williams out of the 3 of us. I'm going to take a second to talk about Javonte because I do think he is going to be one of the most perplexing this year because you brought up in a Sean Payton offense seems to be the clear back as of right now. My worry is that they bring in Audric Estime, who I think is going to be more of a goal line guy. They have Jaleel McLaughlin, who can catch the ball out of the backfield. My fear with Javonte is that there's just going to be enough nuisance around him that these numbers to put up a top 24, top 20 season are going to be out of reach because Audric Estime and Jaleel McLaughlin are going to chip into his touches and just enough where he doesn't become fantasy relevant. So like this, so he will be fantasy relevant. So excuse me, but like not to the extent of being an every week starter in your lineup. Now, I respect drafting by your rankings. Do not get me wrong. I respect that 100%. But that's my one gripe with Javonte Williams.
And that is the thing. That is where the projecting comes in, right? Because for him, it's does he have the volume or not? I mean, that's what it's going to come down to, right? Because if he doesn't have the volume, like you say, if they let Estime, they let McLaughlin really take a hold of it, it doesn't matter how good he is this year, right? I mean, he could rush for 5.6 yards per carry, but if they are just not giving him the volume, he's just not going to be their fantasy relevance wise as high as I have him projected right now. But yeah, I'm just barely over 1,000 yards. I have his receiving work looking pretty good, which I'm probably going to come down a little bit on. But I do have a pretty significant gap between his tier and that next tier there. So I think it also helps that I'm lower on most of the running backs after him is why he's a little bit higher in my rankings.
Which, again, if you're drafting by your rankings, nobody can fault you for that. You can just have a disagreement on a player, and that's all it comes down to. Zamir White afterwards, followed by Marquise Brown, a.k.a. Hollywood Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., DeAndre Hopkins, Brock Bowers, David Njoku, and Ladd McConkey. Jake Ferguson is still on the board, Ty. You may as well take him before I intentionally snipe you.
And you know what?
I hope you misclick.
I'm not going to misclick. It's going to look like it, but I'm not. I'm going Jaylen Warren.
Oh, no! No!
That is brutal. That's brutal.
No. I told you.
That is awesome.
No. Jake Ferguson is my pick. Jake Ferguson is my pick. I don't even care. That's despite you. That is purely despite you.
Okay.
That is so awesome.
That is purely despite you.
No, the thing is, like,
Jaylen Warren's the right pick. I think he is. I think
I think he is too. Like, again, as much as I like Jake Ferguson, there are other tight ends still down this board that I am okay with taking in place of Jake Ferguson. That being said, like, hey, Najee Harris is still there, and you said that you like Najee Harris. I wanted some insurance at running back with Tony Pollard. I like James Cook, but Tony Pollard is not. I don't feel comfortable with him as a number 2 guy. Getting Jaylen Warren, I've now got options there.
Where do you even have Jaylen Warren ranked? 24?
23? 24.
Oh, 24. Yeah,
24.
I got him at 17. I deserve him more than you. I have him as a top 20 back this year.
I got him at 6.
What happened there?
Austin Eckler went after Jaylen Warren. I do think it's the right pick. Just so Ty can't get Jake Ferguson. We're going to put this team up, and people are going to be like, Lucas, you idiot, drafting 2 tight ends.
Zero context.
Zero context. People are going to be like, Lucas, you freaking idiot. And that's fine for the memes. Nick Chubb, Christian Watson. If I didn't take Jake Ferguson there, Christian Watson would have been my pick to pair with Jordan Love. So I sacrificed that. But then ultimately, I do get my running back 24 this year in Jonathan Brooks as my running back 3 then. So I will go ahead and take him there as Najee Harris falls. Afterwards, back to you now, Ty. You're punting tight end for a while, unless if you take TJ Hawkinson here.
That's the plan. I know that there's risk for Hawkinson to hit the PUP list at the beginning of the year. He may miss, let's say, half the season. We really don't know because there is just no set timeline just yet. But what I do know is that when TJ Hawkinson comes back into this Minnesota offense, he's going to be one of the top producers on a week-to-week basis. So getting a guy like TJ at least gives me some kind of tight end presence. Yes, I like Ferguson, but there's ways to work with with a 13-game TJ Hawkinson at this point in drafts.
Coming off of an ACL and MCL, though. That's my massive concern with Hawkinson.
Just walk it off.
Nice.
Rub some dirt on him kind of attitude. Jackson
Exactly.
Smith and Jigba, Trey Benson, Devin Singletary, Keon Coleman, Tua and Brock Purdy, then Brian Robinson off the board. Cameron, to you on the turn. This is where we start getting into this is where we start getting into player take, guys.
Yeah, it's gross here. There's really only one running back. I'm like, well, actually, there's another one down there a little bit, but I don't want to reach on him here. I'm going to take Tyjae Spears.
Nice.
As my first pick. I think I would be shocked if you guys didn't take him with one of these two picks too. If you were in this situation, I feel like that
100%.
That one's pretty consensus there. The other guy I'm going to take here is actually I'm going to go Tyler Lockett. You know, he's the third wide receiver for me, fantasy wise in that offense. But at the same time, what round are we in? 10? I think that feels good enough for me to be like, Tyler Lockett's still a very good wide receiver who's going to be still very solid. A guy that I can still plug in this late. It's not like necessarily like a Jameson Williams dart throw where, maybe he becomes that guy. But at the same time, I know I'm picking someone who's going to get fantasy points throughout the year because Jameson Williams could have 17 receptions this year at the same time.
Dallas Goedert, Gus Edwards, Dalton Schultz. Afterwards, Jared Goff, Adonai Mitchell, Curtis Samuel, Jameson Williams. I do like that Tyler Lockett pick as well. I think he's very relevant in that offense. Ty, to you now. How we got 3 rounds left here. How are you looking to fill out the team?
We're going to take one more wide receiver because I know that one of my picks has to be a tight end, and then one of the other picks probably needs to be a running back because at this point I only have 3. So I'm going to go with arguably the guy that I think is getting kind of disrespected in drafts at this moment in both best ball and redraft. It's Courtland Sutton. And I know that he's not the most exciting player. He's got Bo Nix as his quarterback, but Courtland Sutton, this is the lowest that he's gone in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, I think there's an argument to be made that he's got more structure in this offense now. And yes, maybe going from Russ to Bo Nix is what puts him down here. But again, he is the clear wide receiver 1 in that offense. So getting a guy like Courtland Sutton in the 10th round as my wide receiver 5, sign me up every single day of the week.
Yeah, I really do like Courtland Sutton in this range. I am very, very okay with that pick, especially with the touchdown upside that he has as the wide receiver 1 in Denver too. I do like that pick. I will go ahead and take also a guy who I think has a lot of touchdown upside this year in Romeo Doubs. I like him here to pair with Jordan Love. Again, with the upside that he has, team 1 then takes Jaden Daniels and Chase Brown on the turn, to which I will then follow that up with a little bit of safety blanket Jacoby Myers here to add to my wide receiver position as well. Again, we're at the point with running backs where, could I like a Zeke Elliott, a Zach Charbonnet? Sure. Zeke is probably my favorite out of that bunch. But again, a lot of these guys who are going in this range are just not cutting it for me. It's not worth drafting them over, wide receiver depth, which, I should have drafted instead of Jake Ferguson. But, it's mock draft 1.0. I can't get sniped this much already early in the season, so I gotta force some payback where it's necessary. Cole Kmet off the board then. Tyler, you said one of your picks is going to be running back, one of your picks is going to be a tight end. Which comes first?
It's Pat Freiermuth. It's the Arthur Smith tight end combination that scares me. But
how do we know it's not Cameron Hayward? That's Jonnu Smith.
Really?
We said the same thing about Jonnu.
No.
I'm not saying Cameron Hayward is as good as John. I'm not. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that people keep talking about this Arthur Smith tight end offense, and I'm asking where the proof is.
I mean, is there an argument to be made that Pat Freiermuth can be the number 2 pass catching option in this Pittsburgh offense?
I'm also pretty sure it's Connor Hayward.
Yeah,
this is Cameron. I meant Connor. That's what I meant.
I was like, you kept saying it. I was like, man, I just don't. I feel like I
Hayward
remember that one.
Yeah, no, Connor Hayward. You're right.
No, it's not a super high ceiling, and it's a pretty low floor when it comes to Pat Freiermuth. But the fact is, like, it's George Pickens, Roman Wilson, and Van Jefferson, the top 3 wide receivers on this Steelers team. It doesn't give you any security by any means, but there's at least a path for Pat Freiermuth to be one of the top pass catching options in this offense. May not be great because it is Arthur Smith, but still.
I think people want to try and keep hyping up Pat Freiermuth as this like tight end sleeper. And if we were disappointed with Kyle Pitts, I don't know how it's going to get better for Pat Freiermuth. Now I can understand because you're drafting him as the tight end 16, tight end 17. So you're not paying the tight end 7 price tag for him. I think that argument is it's like a false hope argument in my mind. That's the issue I have with it.
And the other thing is too, like for second to last pick of my draft, if he doesn't produce and there's another tight end that produces week 1 on waivers, I'll just drop Freiermuth. But at least, it's getting the guy that I would at least prefer to roster right away instead of having to then look at guys like Ben Sinnott, Hunter Henry, Chigakonkwo, Tyler Conklin even. Like I would rather have Freiermuth right out the gate and just see what happens from there instead of any of those guys.
Which I can completely understand, and I can understand the process behind that pick then. Blake Corum, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Ezekiel Elliott, Mike Williams, Xavier Leggett, Zach Charbonnet to you, Cameron, on the clock.
Wow, it is gross here. I'm gonna take. Oh, I gotta here. This is just for fun. I'm gonna take a wide receiver to start. Just to make sure neither of you
quit him. Let's go.
It was between him or Jerry Jeudy there. And I'm gonna go with Jahan Dotson. I feel like I don't want to quit him quite yet. I feel like I should quit Jerry Jeudy, but that contract's making it tough at the same time. Then at the running back position, it's I just got a lot here that I don't like. Jerome Ford, Rico Dowdle, Ty Chandler, Antonio Gibson, even. All those names make me want to throw up. I mean, it's just like I think I'm gonna go Jerome Ford, just because he produced last year, well enough, and then who knows how Nick Chubb comes back. But like you said, I mean, same kind of as Freiermuth is. He could be a real early drop if Chubb comes back and looks really good right away. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna go.
Yeah, to at least start the season, Jerome Ford should find himself in a decent little spot. We'll see how many goal line touches he gets. Those could be scarfed by Deonta Foreman. TBD, though, we got to see how this Browns backfield and Nicholas Chubb's health shakes out. Kirk Cousins, Luke Musgrave are the first 2 picks after Cameron to wrap out the final round. Gabe Davis, J.K. Dobbins, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Wright, and the bad man, Aaron Rodgers. Who's the running back, Ty?
It's going to be Rico Dowdle. I don't think there's just any way that this entire backfield goes to Ezekiel Elliott. I think Rico Dowdle plays a role in this offense. I thought about Ty Chandler just because I don't think it's a guarantee that Aaron Jones plays a 17-game season, but I don't really want to bank on an injury for a guy like Ty Chandler to start producing on my fantasy team.
Yeah, I think Rico Dowdle is a fine pick there, especially since we don't know what Ezekiel Elliott will or will not bring to the table as he is nearing the end of his career. Josh Downs off the board next. I will take Jaleel McLaughlin for my running back 4, just because I do believe in the burst and potential talent that he has there, the opportunity to take touches away from Javonte Williams. I brought that up earlier to have him as my RB4. Again, it's not super ideal, but really my 8th round Jake Ferguson pick just kind of threw my rest of the draft for a loop. But that's okay. We live and we learn. We deal with it. And in mock draft 1.0 on June 3rd, I hope you're not actually drafting your fantasy football redraft leagues, your home leagues this early. If you're doing a few leagues for fun, sure, go for it. I don't care when you draft. Just don't let anger get the best. Don't let it consume you in your draft. But considering it's June 3rd mock draft 1.0, we got 6 more of these to do throughout the offseason. We can get a little cute, have a little bit of fun, create a little bit of content for the people this early in the offseason. Let's do a quick run through of all of our teams here. I'll start with mine because I was at the 102. You want to highlight that sucker, Cameron? We'll go through and we'll highlight them one by one. You're the one controlling it. I know. Tough life you're living. You got to update a house and highlight teams on Sleeper.
Just
man. It's
brutal.
if you live.
Brutal. Overworking me here.
Overworking.
I
CD
need a pay
Lamb.
raise.
CD Lamb, Travis Kelce, Mike Evans was a great 3-round start, followed by Alvin Kamara, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Swift. I was really pleased with those first 6 rounds. Got sniped on Dak Prescott, settled for Jordan Love, got sniped on Jaylen Warren. Took Jake Ferguson just to upset Ty, and thankfully Jonathan Brooks came back to me, who I actually have as a top 24 back this year, so was very thrilled with that 9th round pick, despite him coming off of an ACL. Went Romeo Dobbs, who I think actually has a good amount of touchdown upside this year. Jacoby Myers, who is much more of a floor guy, also went on a nice little touchdown run last year. I definitely think those come back down, but again, adds more safety to my wide receiver position, and then wrapped it up with my RB4 in Jaleel McLaughlin. Don't draft 2 tight ends in your fantasy drafts. That is your lesson learned here, especially one in the 8th round after you have Travis Kelce already. Ty, you can go through your team from the 4th overall pick.
So before I start, I just want to ask you, Lucas, fledge out your thoughts with Travis Kelce at the end of the 2nd round with that pick. Because I think it makes sense because last year he was going as a top 5 pick.
Yep.
Right. And he was still like tight end. He was a top 3 tight end on the year and very much worth that end of the 2nd round capital.
He was the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game.
There it is.
He was the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game. And that's it.
I'm just curious.
Go ahead.
I was just curious what the idea is with the build with a Travis Kelce in the late 2nd.
It's the none of these guys deserve to be a 2nd round pick argument, where they all have some sense of volatility. Can you highlight Tyler's team for a sec, just so I can name the other wide receivers that went around him? You had, sorry, not on my team. Thank you. Chris Olave, like he's one that I would definitely take there if he was at the end of the 2nd. Like Brandon Ayuk, you got Deebo Samuel there. I think people are expecting, a top 12-ish leap for Ayuk this year, which is totally possible. I think the 49ers, false. I think Brock Purdy's efficiency comes down this year. I just don't think you can repeat 36 touchdowns he threw last year. I don't think you just repeat that. And I think that does impact Brandon Ayuk. Devontae Adams, there's concerns there around age. Drake London, we have yet to see it. And then when I'm looking at Josh Jacobs, who I have as my RB15, I have no interest in him there. I got Travis Etienne as my running back 12. Don't have him. I'm not interested at his price tag there. Mike Evans, Nico Collins, Diggs, like those are guys I kind of had in the range, but if I can get the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game, assuming Rashee Rice is going to be suspended probably 10 games this year, there's nobody underneath. It's Hollywood and Xavier Worthy on the outside. It is Travis Kelce with everything underneath. So if he's going to continue to be a staple for this Kansas City offense in a bad season, in a down season, we called it. We were disappointed with Travis Kelce last year. Still the tight end 1 in fantasy points per game. Out of all the guys I'm looking at there, Kelce has the most appeal to me. That's just where I land with him.
Yeah, 1,000%.
So there we go. My Kelce rant and love is not even love. It's just like opportunity cost now of tail end of round 2 instead of mid round 1. But your team from the 4th spot, Ty, turned out fairly good.
Yeah, started off with Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, just 3 stud wide receivers right off the top. Then I grabbed what turned out to be kind of my hero RB in James Cook, who I think has top 10, top 8 upside this year. Then I grabbed Anthony Richardson in the 5th, quarterback 1 overall upside this year. Then Jaden Reed for some, maybe again, I called this a luxury pick at the moment. Looking back on it, I don't necessarily hate the pick, but because the other idea that I had was running back, but there weren't really any running backs that really fancied me at that spot. So I was just like, you know what, let's just go grab another good pass catcher. So then after that, I went Tony Pollard and Jaylen Warren back to back to get myself some decent running back depth. And then I grabbed TJ Hawkinson, Cortland Sutton, Pat Freiermuth, Rico Dowdle to finish it off and fill out the rest of my team.
Entire Cameron, your team from the 112 at the turn.
Yeah, I got Jonathan Taylor and Garrett Wilson to start. It feels pretty chalk to me. But then I go Cooper Kupp, which I know is going to be a contentious pick for many. Jaylen Waddle, Kyle Pitts. I feel like you're either still going to give Kyle Pitts a chance with Kirk Cousins, or you're just so far out of him that you're not even willing to draft him no matter where he falls to. Kyler Murray, who I was surprised to find out we all have top 5 in our rankings. My favorite guy on the board, Deontay Johnson. Then I got Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears, the good old Tyler Lockett, Jahan Dotson, and Jerome Ford.
So there you have it. We'll throw these teams up on the socials this week. You can take your vote at who drafted the best team, and I fear it's not going to be my team, because as soon as people see I drafted 2 tight ends after drafting Travis Kelce is one of them, I'm afraid my streak of dominance will be snapped. Totally worth it though to get my anger out. That was my stress relief for the day. That's just like, it was a great release of, I no longer have to hold this. I can take it out on Tyler by taking Jake Ferguson, even though it really probably didn't phase you all that much. But again, we will have more of these mock drafts coming literally every other week this offseason. I believe it's every 3rd episode is going to be a mock draft this offseason on the podcast. So make sure you're subscribed over on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast as well. Tuesday, Thursday episodes coming out for you all the entire offseason. Again, we drafted these teams based on our projections, fully statted out season projections in the Fantasy Football Fellas draft guide for this year. You will get our projections. You'll get a video archive on every single player we make a video about. If there's a video about a player or a player is included in a video, we will clip it. We will put it in the video archive, and you will have access to all of it, whether you watch us primarily on TikTok, primarily on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you primarily watch our content. You will be able to get it from all in one spot in our draft guide. We'll have risk and upside ratings, as well. Tier rankings coming. What else am I missing? I feel like we're missing something else.
I didn't even listen to like last 30 seconds.
That's typical of you, though. You typically, I mean, you like a whole episode without listening to me. That's no surprise. That's nothing new. That's nothing new. But make sure you get your copy. It will be updated every single week. So if you buy it now, it's not like this is your only copy you get. We send an update out every single week. You'll get that in your email with whatever email you purchase the draft guide with. So make sure you put an email in there that we can actually send you a weekly update to your inbox. Again, you can find that down in the description of the video or audio podcast you are listening to. You can follow us on the socials, FFFellas on Twitter, the FFFellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, and the good old TikTok for however long the United States government wants to leave that up. You can follow us on Twitter. You got to get the... however long they'll keep it up. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Lucas Wenzel, Camlaw FFF, and Tyler_Plath. We will be back later this week talking a little bit of underdog strategy and our favorite values in their best ball formats right now. They are literally maxing out drafts left and right. There's already been one puppy contest maxed out. Best Ball Mania 5 is underway. There's currently puppy but super flex or super flex drafts going on over on Underdog right now. It is quite literally the easiest way to practice mock drafting while also investing like $5 to potentially win. What is the puppy prize? $100,000 is the top prize. Is that what it is? It's an easy way to get in on mock drafts. All you got to do is chip in, $25 to your Underdog account. That's 5 drafts, and they'll even double that up to $50, all the way up to $250 as well if you put in 125. So sign up with the code fellas over there. We'll be back later this week with some strategy and our favorite values over there. Until then, though, stay safe, stay healthy. Make sure to place your vote on who you think won this mock draft battle, and we will see you all next time. Deuces.
Deuces.